Good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. The Orthodox Church in Romania is facing growing pressure to change baptism rituals following the death of an infant. The baby sadly died following a ceremony which involves immersing infants 3 times in holy water. The 6-week-old suffered cardiac arrest and was taken to hospital and unfortunately did not survive. The autopsy revealed liquid in his lungs. Prosecutors have opened a manslaughter investigation against the priest in the northeastern city of Suceava. An online petition calling for changes to the ritual has gathered more than 56,000 signatures by Thursday evening. The death of a newborn baby because of this practice is a huge tragedy, said a message with the petition. This risk must be ruled out for the joy of baptism to triumph. One internet user denounced the brutality of the ritual, and another criticized the stubbornness of those who think that it is the will of God to maintain it. Local media recounted several similar incidents in recent years. Church spokesman Vasily Bănescu said priests could pour a little water on the baby's forehead instead of full immersion. But Archbishop Teodosi, leader of the church's traditionalist wing, said the ritual would not change. More than 80% of Romanians are Orthodox, and the church is one of the most trusted institutions, according to recent polls. We all know that the religious often like to stick their noses into our genitalia, and they are not always prudish, especially if money is involved. See this from our friends at Atheist Republic.
Christian OnlyFans model loves her religion and stripping. Okay. An OnlyFans model who went to a Catholic school as a child and includes prayer as her nightly ritual claims her faith does not restrict her from stripping. Lindsay Capuano is a 22-year-old girl from Connecticut. She uses the OnlyFans platform to sell suggestive photos of herself with over 2.4 million followers on Instagram. She is reportedly earning about $6,600 per day from the subscription-based site, making her average monthly salary roughly $200,000.
Well, I can understand her amazement. Thank you, Susanna and Armin. Different countries have different policies towards religious education. In the UK, we teach all the major religions. France doesn't permit the teaching of any religion in schools. And here's what it's like in Germany.
The religion course is built right into their daily schedule. And this day's class in Hamburg has a certain Jesus of Nazareth on the program.
Für Christen, Jesus gleich Messias. Für Juden, Jesus nicht der Messias. Zentraler Unterschied.
In Germany, children are allowed to wear religious symbols. The Constitution also guarantees the right to religious instruction. But Hamburg is special. Here, the students study all religions, whatever their faith.
Ich bin Atheistin und deswegen finde ich es auch sehr interessant zu hören, was die anderen in der Klasse dazu zu sagen haben.
Unser Glauben sagt auch, dass wir auch für andere Ansichten interessieren müssen.
So kann jeder die andere Sicht verstehen und alles nochmal neu kennenlernen.
Das ist jetzt nicht.
The courses are led by university-trained teachers, like Jan Bashok, who also teaches history. He's a Christian, But he doesn't teach on behalf of his church. He wants to be as objective as possible about religion.
Für viele ist es der Erstkontakt. Wenn diese Erfahrung gemacht wird, in den Kontexten, den Lebenskontexten der Jugendlichen, ist eine gute Ergänzung, eben wie andere Perspektiven zu sehen. Eine, die im staatlichen Auftrag des Religionsunterrichts eben auch frei ist von dieser Institution.
The religion course has proved its worth over the past 30 years in Hamburg, where around half of primary school students have an immigration background. The authorities feel it helps prevent radicalization.
Es ist ja sehr auffällig, dass die meisten Extremisten, die meisten Terroristen kaum religiöse Bildung hatten. Und genau da sitzt der Religionsunterricht. Wir vermitteln ein religiöses Grundverständnis und dann wird sehr schnell deutlich, dass Islam.
That report by Anne Maillet and Nick Spicer of France 24. Regular viewers may remember that last week I announced the launch of a movie called Women Leaving Islam. It was premiered on 1st of February. Here is a taster.
I had a very rough childhood, FGM and control, and I always felt like the weird one in the family, the black sheep. I was born a Muslim, raised a Muslim, and now I'm an ex-Muslim and an activist for women's rights, especially ones that have left or are still in the religion of Islam.
When I start to wear hijab and looking to my brother, why I wear hijab and my brother not? And then I look to my mom, why she have to get out like this way? And then, but I ask myself, I don't want to discuss that with anyone. I only asking myself until I start to wear burqa, full covering. I get this feeling it's not my clothes, but I have to do it for Allah, for my family, for the society.
We were brought up, I always call it this Muslim bubble, because we went to a Muslim school, we were involved in the community, and then we didn't know any other non-Muslims. The only non-Muslims we knew were on TV. So we just weren't mixing with anyone that had a different point of view, although there was slight, obviously, different points of view in terms of within the community. I always felt like my school, my teachers, and my friends had a stricter Islam, which I, for a very long time, thought was the real Islam. Like that music was haram, plucking your eyebrows was haram, all these kind of slightly different things that my parents were a little bit more relaxed on, a more moderate sort of Muslim. But I was very much within a community that were quite strict.
You can see the rest of the rather harrowing movie if you click on the link that I shall put into the details below. We go to Australia for a report on COVID and religion.
In a year of COVID, we've seen churches shuttered, weddings cancelled, even funerals down to a handful of mourners. The pandemic's been the most serious blow to religious practice, maybe since the Black Death in the 1300s. But how has it affected religious belief? The answer might surprise you. The Pew Research Centre in Washington, D.C. has just completed a study on the impact of COVID on faith in 14 developed countries, including Australia. Dr. Neha Sagal is Associate Director of Research.
In Australia, 10% of people say that COVID has strengthened their religious faith, and 14% say that the religious faith of Australians as a whole has gotten stronger as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah. Where does that compare with, for example, the United States?
Overall, Americans are much more likely than people in other advanced economies to say COVID has increased their religious faith. 28% of Americans say that their faith has gotten stronger. That's compared with 10% in Australia. And the same share, 28% of Americans say that Americans as a whole have gotten more religious, and that's compared with 14% of Australians. So, of course, there's a huge gap between the opinions of Australians and Americans on this issue.
Yeah. Nonetheless, did it surprise the researchers to find that in many countries, including Australia, against many predictions, COVID had in fact increased religious faith? I mean, we are speaking here about people already with a religious faith, and they say it's had a more intense effect on them. But did any of these findings surprise the researchers?
Well, it could go either way, because studies do show that crises can increase people's religious faith, but COVID also brought some unique challenges for faith communities around the world. I mean, for one thing, people couldn't engage with their congregations the way that they normally did. So the two sort of competing phenomena could take faith in either direction. But in fact, what we find is that the secularization trends that we have seen in Europe, that we have seen in some of the advanced economies, do continue the trend as expected. And COVID really didn't change that very much.
One thing that is particularly interesting, though, is that if we look at the top three countries, the top three developed countries that you surveyed, the US, Spain and Italy, now these are among the hardest hit countries in the world, and yet people's faith looks to be strengthened. What were the results, for example, in Spain and Italy?
Yes, in Spain, 16% said that their faith has strengthened, and in Italy, it's 15%. So now, remember, these are the more religious countries of Southern Europe. No, still, you do see a big gap between the United States and these more religious countries in Europe.
Do we know what explains that?
For one thing, you have to keep sort of the wider context in mind. And I think that the difference between the United States and many other advanced economies, Australia or European countries, points to the different place of religion in American life as compared with these countries. Europe experienced rapid secularization in the 19th century. And in the US also, we have seen trends towards secularization, but still religion plays this important role in the lives of Americans, especially when you compare with Australia or Japan or European countries. And we do see in the findings that the greater proclivity of Americans to say that their faith has strengthened is driven by religious Americans.
One other thing that especially leapt out at me, Neha, was there was a wealth gap here as well. What does it suggest about lower income people?
We do know that religion and economics are closely correlated with each other. Higher income countries tend to be less religious, lower income countries tend to be more religious. And that's sort of one explanation for why, say, sub-Saharan Africa is a lot more religious than Scandinavian countries. Of course, there are many other competing factors as well. It's also true on an individual level that we do tend to see a correlation between people's income and their level of religious observance.
What did you find about how the pandemic had affected family life?
Generally, more people said that their relationships with their families are stronger than the share who said that the faith is stronger. For example, in Australia, we have about a third of people saying that they now feel they have a stronger connection with their family because of the pandemic. It's the same in the United States, about 41%. So, of course, it's higher in the US. But still, Americans even are turning to the family more than they are turning to the faith.
Yeah, in the United States, I noticed that younger adults have been moving back to the family home during the pandemic. I mean, very much a reversal of often the trend where young people go away to college.
It seems not just in the United States, but in several other countries as well, Australia included, younger people are more likely to say that their relationship with their family is stronger. So, of course, in the United States, younger people moved home in record levels. This is a pretty global trend, younger people feeling stronger bonds with their family than older people.
That's Dr. Neha Segal of the Pew Research Centre in Washington, D.C. And you're with Andrew West.
Thank you, Andrew. It's good, isn't it, that families are bonding more. We now go to Nigeria. There's always something happening in this very religious country. And this week, the police arrested a witch-hunting pastor. The Advocacy for Alleged Witches, AFAW, has welcomed the arrest of a controversial Anambra pastor, Onyebuchi Okacha, otherwise known as Onyezi Jesus. The police in Anambra reportedly arrested Pastor Okacha on January the 27th. They said the pastor was invited for questioning but declined to make further comments on the matter because the investigation was ongoing. Onyezi Jesus had scheduled January the 28th to raise dead bodies, and the government in Anambra State had earlier warned against his criminal and indecent conduct in the name of religion. The State Ministry of Health had directed hospitals and mortuaries not to allow Onyezi Jesus to use their facilities to carry out the planned raising of 7 corpses from the dead. AFAW, in a statement signed by its national coordinator, Atheist Alliance Advisory Council member Leo Igwe, commended the police and the government of Anambra State for apprehending this religious loose cannon called Onyezi Jesus and for taking prompt measures to address the promotion of superstition in the state. Superstitious nonsense is destroying the state of Anambra and hampering its growth and development. Onyezi Jesus should be tried and punished according to the law to deter other religious mischief makers. AFAW wishes to inform the government that religious exploitation is pervasive in Anambra State. Leo said, "There are many Onyezi Jesuses operating and cunningly gullible persons in different parts of the state. The police should extend their investigation to other religious con artists and fraudulent religious ministries." Staying with Nigeria, this report from our correspondent Tavian Oladapo.
Nigerians like to say that they are the world's happiest people and the most religious. The basis of their happiness, they go on to say, in the face of poor well-being statistics, such as one of the world's highest levels of maternal mortality, is the hope provided by their faith. Religion is central to the lives of most Nigerians, whether they self-identify as Christian or Muslim. In a recent poll of Nigerians, among the 28% of respondents that claim to be immune to COVID-19, nearly half attributed such confidence to their faith in God. Nigeria has never conducted a religious census, but the politically motivated conventional wisdom is that Christians and Muslims are each about half of the population, and that therefore neither of the world's faiths is a minority. Traditional religious faith and practice predating the arrival of Islam and Christianity are pervasive, though often beneath a veneer provided by the two world faiths. In part because religion is so central, disputes over water and land or ethnic rivalries often assume a religious coloration. The power of religious leaders over their flocks is particularly salient during periods such as now, when popular distrust of the Nigerian government is endemic and national identity is weak. Some African scholars have recently highlighted the role of Nigeria's religious leaders by providing specific instances of them exercising their power and influence. Particularly notable was that of imams in northern Nigeria and even the Sultan of Sokoto in promoting vaccination against polio in the face of fundamentalist claims that vaccines were part of a Christian plot to limit Muslim births. Religious leaders play a central role in determining whether an individual will accept contraceptives and family planning. Also important are their ability to deliver medical information and services, especially in rural areas. Many spiritual leaders, both Christian and Muslim, also play a vital part in conflict resolution and peace and reconciliation processes. However, from an outside perspective, if religious leaders can be a force for good, they can also undermine public health and human rights initiatives. In the COVID-19 crisis, some religious leaders have opposed government measures designed to curb the spread of the disease. Others have claimed that they have special miracle cures, religious leaders in Nigeria, Uganda, and elsewhere have been at the forefront of agitation for punitive measures against gay people. The rhetoric employed by Christian and Muslim religious leaders against each other is often far from the milk of human kindness. COVID-19 dominates the international discourse, hence a focus on religious leaders in the context of health and disease. But religious leaders in Nigeria and many other post-colonial states are a powerful influence on politics and a host of other social issues. With this in mind, Western diplomats, representatives of non-governmental organizations, and the business community have every reason to open and sustain dialogue with them. Faith leaders are crucial sources of information, especially where governments lack credibility, and they may have a powerful influence over the suppression or aggravation of violence.
And now we go to Pakistan for this report from Harris Sultan.
There was a very disturbing news video footage came out on Thursday. There was a Christian woman who was brutally beaten up by her colleagues in a hospital in Karachi under the accusation of committing blasphemy. This grown-up woman was, I mean, as I said, you can go and watch the video. It would shake you up. This is another Asia Bibi's case. There's been some development ever since I spoke about it on Thursday. First, police took her in custody to protect her from the angry mob, but they refused to register a case by saying that, look, there's not enough evidence. It's he said, she said. But then an angry mob threatened the police station. They encircled the police station and they chanted against the local police. So police, under pressure, filed booked her for 295C blasphemy, which is punishable by death. This is exactly what happened with Asia Bibi. Nearly 9 or 10 years of her life were wasted. In 2011, very early on in that case, the governor of Punjab, Salman Taseer, he spoke in her favor, and he was gunned down by his own bodyguard. So that is how volatile this topic is amongst these people. And this has happened again. This woman was accused of blasphemy, and these are doctors, apparently. They're lady doctors in these white dresses, and they were slapping her around, they were beating her around. Terrible video. And the poor woman kept saying, she kept getting slapped in the face, and she kept saying, I haven't done anything. I swear, I haven't said anything. I haven't done anything. And she kept saying it, but nobody listened. And the angry mob got in, they beat her up with sticks, slapped her around, threw punches, and I'm very worried about it. I did tag Imran Khan and obviously our wonderful human rights minister, Dr. Shireen Mazari on the left. They both are Western educated leaders of Pakistan. They know that this is absolutely ridiculous law, but they don't have the balls to abolish this law. That's called blasphemy law. Unfortunately, as long as this law remains, many more Asia Bibis will come. I don't know the name of this lady, but she is going to be Asia Bibi. There has to be a law protecting Pakistani minorities against blasphemy law. It's not a crime to criticize or attack a man who lived 1400 years ago, who married a 9-year-old girl, allegedly from their own sources, beheaded 700 Jews in one day, and was a very colorful man who loved women. He was a womanizer. 11, some say up to 13 wives, and numerous sex slaves. Some of those sex slaves and wives included the widows of people he had murdered himself, or had murdered himself at his own orders. During the day, killed their husbands, at night, bedded them. So that is the character of Muhammad. And apparently, they say, well, nope, you can't say that. It's written in their own books. Your prophet did all of these things. It's written in your own books. And I'm sure despite of all of that, which, I mean, the writings on the wall is so clear what kind of a character Muhammad had. Despite of all of that, these minorities, I don't think that they would say anything of that sort. But they still get easily accused of these things. And unfortunately, they pay the price. This woman is going to spend next 7, 8, 9, 10 years in prison. What's going to happen to her kids, her husband, her family? Just like with Asia Bibi lost her mind, as anyone would. Her children grew up without their mother. They would never be able to get those 10 years of their lives back. And the same thing is going to happen to this poor woman. Her children are going to grow up without their mother. Her only crime was she was born in a Muslim country and she was working in a hospital that was surrounded by these people. I don't even want to call them, but sure, we have to call them people. And for whatever personal squabble they had, they accused her. And now she's going to pay the price because she lived in Islamic Republic of Pakistan. That is the beauty of this pathetic word called Islam.
What a horrible story. Thank you, Harris. Please consider donating to our worthy causes. The links will be in the details below. We will be back with our weekly news review at the same time, in the same places, in 7 days. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. And thank you for watching.